valuable time. Okay, welcome everybody to NEA BPD's webinar for, gosh, what month are we in? February 2026. And I just wanted to first off acknowledge that we are meeting in the spirit of reconciliation. The NEA BPD acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Just for those of you that are not familiar with NEA BPD, our primary aim is to support families and carers of people living with a personality disorder, which can affect up to 17% of the population. We're volunteer powered and we have about 200 volunteers right across Australia. And we are one of 26 countries around the world that offers the Family Connections program. It's a 12-week evidence-based program that provides skills and hope to family members and carers. The program is offered free of charge to participants and is led by our volunteer leaders who generously give their time to support other families. We receive no government funding and rely solely on the generosity of our families and supporters. And for those of you that were able to make a donation for today's webinar, we really appreciate that. And we really appreciate Rosie Cappuccino for giving us her time. So a little bit about Rosie. Rosie writes and talks about her life with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. She argues that feeling intensely and caring immensely about your connections with others is a deeply valid way of existing and of being in the world, but is not always seen as such. Rosie writes non-stigmatizing, empathetic books about living a fulfilling life with a stigmatized diagnosis. She works as a teacher and lives in the UK with her husband and daughter. She has a degree in English literature and a master's degree in medical humanities. I'm going to stop talking because we all really want to hear from Rosie. So, Rosie, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Shani. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for joining on the recording or live. So, my talk is all about supporting someone with BPD through a strengths-based approach, and a little bit about me. So, I'm an author. I've run a blog for 10 years. I'm a writer. I'm a teacher. I'm a mum, a wife, a family member, a friend. And I've studied English literature and medical humanities. And I'm saying all this because sometimes when you're diagnosed with BPD, you can be reduced to that. So I just want to say it's broad and I'm lots and lots of things and I do lots and lots of things. And I'm sure that's the same for your family members and your friends as well. Yeah, so I'm just trying to move my toolbar down a bit, sorry. Yeah, so I write non-stigmatizing and empathetic books on living a fulfilling life with a diagnosis as stigmatized as BPD. So if you're interested, I've written these two books and I'll talk a little bit more about them because writing about my life is something that really empowers me and helps me to understand myself and other people and my place in the world. I've been writing a blog about my life with the diagnosis of BPD for over 10 years now, and that's enabled me to talk to so many people who feel similarly to me, and I've learned so much through those conversations. And I embrace emotional complexity. I embrace ambiguity in questions. I don't pretend to have any finished answers or any easy answers on anything. Much of my writing and speaking is on the social and relational, so the relationships-based aspects of life with such a stigmatized diagnosis. As I've been blogging over the last 10 years, a few themes have emerged. I believe that people with a BPD diagnosis deserve the following things: respect, compassion, warmth, and access to effective care. And it's often so difficult to find those things. They seem so basic, but they can be so tricky to find at times. For me over in the UK, I'm not sure how it is over where all your members live, but yeah, it can be so difficult, sadly. Um, Kind of beyond this articulation of what I believe people with a BPD diagnosis deserve, I've taken my thinking a little bit further and a little bit broader over the years. And yeah, I've realized that actually feeling emotions intensely and caring deeply about relationships is a valid and meaningful way of existing and being. And throughout the past 15 years of my life, I feel that who I am and how I feel has not always been seen as a valid or meaningful way of existing and being. And that's why I write and talk so much about my identity and my relationships rather than talking about my symptoms or my difficulties solely. And embracing my strengths and having others embrace my strengths has been central to me feeling better and more able to live my full life as happily as possible. Just to go back one step, I share my experiences. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you've written a book, you've written a blog, so you speak for people with BPD." I definitely don't. I'm not representative. I just share my life. I don't offer how-tos. I just share my thinking in case it opens up new ways of thinking for others. And like all my writing and all my blogging, this talk itself too is a work in progress. I do share my thinking out loud and it's constantly evolving. And that's the most helpful way of me to think about myself and my work and my life, really. So, yeah, no finished, polished answers, really. Um, yeah, so two things have emerged through my writing and talking about my life. I'm a person who feels emotions intensely and I care deeply about the relationships in my life. As well, I'm also a person who's lived through immense times of immense emotional distress. And those two things don't cancel each other out. Just because I benefit from being a person who feels emotions intensely and I benefit from being a person who cares deeply, um, that's not to say that I haven't lived through times of immense distress. Secondly, I feel that my life is unapologetically informed and without a doubt enriched by my lived experiences and about who I am. But again, that's not to say that this is not deeply painful at times. And that's something that I do ask listeners and my readers to hopefully acknowledge or like notice that too. I'm not saying it's not difficult to be me. Um, so when people say you're not your mental illness, your mental health difficulties don't define you, um, I know what people are saying when they say that to me, and I do get that. I am broader than that, and I am all those things that I mentioned, like a mum, a teacher, a wife, a friend, a sister. Um, but also being a person with mental health difficulties, like a diagnosis of BPD, and having highly stigmatized mental health difficulties, that actually infuses every aspect of my life and my identity. And I liken that to the tea bag in the cup. It kind of suffuses through everything that I do and everything that I am in some way. Um, so, what I mean by that is my lived experiences inform how I live my life, they inform how I try to be as a human being. They inform how I am as a parent, a wife, a friend, a family member, a teacher, a writer, and so on. So at the top here, you'll see I've experienced stigma, discrimination, immense distress, as I mentioned, feeling silenced, having to mask myself, my emotions, my experiences, having to hide them. I've experienced being misunderstood, disbelieved, often by people in positions of power, like doctors, psychiatrists, etc. Um, Not always, but it has been significant. And that means that over the last 15 years, um, I've really come to hold the following things as important to me: empathy, being empathetic as much as I can, being warm to others as much as I can, trying to reduce assumptions that I make about other people because I've had people make huge assumptions about me and I really don't like it. Um, Honesty and openness are a massive central value for me. And I try as much as I can to listen to and open spaces for marginalized voices. And that's essential for me as a teacher, as a friend, and so on. So I hope as I talk, it becomes clear that the things that have happened to me have actually opened up potential for me to be try as much as possible to be the person that I want to be. And the pain that I've suffered, I've tried to translate that into the values that I hold so dear. And that's not to say it's not painful, because it is. So yeah, as I mentioned, understanding my identity and kind of embracing my identity has been so powerful for me. And that's two things. That's the strengths and the pain, and they're kind of two sides of the same coin at times. So the strengths for me relating to my diagnosis of BPD and my lived experiences are my resilience, the way I value connections, my creativity, and my thoughtfulness. And that's related to the trauma that I've been through, the struggle that I sometimes still continue to go through, and the deep distress that I felt and that I sometimes still continue to feel. Um, yeah. Whoops. So I do see life with a BPD diagnosis in two layers. The first layer on this cake is the experiences themselves. So I'm having a difficult set of experiences, for example. And the second layer is that society often doesn't understand, respect, or meet my needs. I find it hard to get my needs met. I have to mask to stay safe. I can't speak openly. I feel shame and I feel alone. So I've written that in the present tense, but that's how I used to feel in the past, and I still feel that way sometimes today. But I found a few ways around that, or tried to find people who can help me to kind of like undo these layers a little bit and feel a bit freer and a bit more, to make life a bit easier to live, essentially. So, um, the experiences kind of layer, um, as I'm sure everybody is, very clued up on, the kind of things that people with a BPD diagnosis experience are things like the intense, quickly changing emotions. That's true for me. My emotions can change really fast. Having panic attacks, kind of like emotional meltdowns, times of really immense distress, brief episodes of paranoia where you're not quite sure what's real or not real, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, things related to that. And just being very responsive or very kind of activated to the feelings of connection or disconnection with valued others. And relating to this on the other side, the societal and the stigma related aspects for me, they're things like feeling misunderstood, feeling rejected, feeling silenced, unable to speak openly, hiding needs, masking, the prejudice that I've seen running rife and the discrimination that I've seen and I've experienced myself and my friends have experienced, and the struggle to access relevant and effective compassionate care. And I've put the arrow in the middle because it's my belief that the the more the societal and stigma related aspects ramp up, the more my experiences, my symptoms have ramped up as well. And they kind of, for me, I've realized that they interlink so much. They drive the societal stigma drives the experiences. So let's have a little look. Just yeah, it's always upsetting to me to think that people with BPD are constantly called difficult patients. Um, Obviously not always. There are some clinicians that are so caring and so understanding, but still, yeah, people with BPD, they are judged negatively at times, even more negatively than other diagnoses like schizophrenia, for example. Um, People with BPD do consistently report receiving suboptimal levels of care, for example. I can send these references around later as well. Um, Being called difficult patients and that being used as an excuse to be not treated or not cared for or not given the right support at times. So for me, people who understand or who are open to trying to understand the societal or the stigma related aspects, they are incredibly precious to me. Um, my friends who are open to understanding that, they are actually life-changing. And you can see me actually like welling up how much it means to me. Um, because they're like gold, they're like gold dust to me that they understand people who kind of are trying to misunderstand me or um, like reject me, and just to understand the societal stigma related aspects means so much to me, probably even more than understanding like the experiences side of things. So yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize I was going to well up, but I do, because that's how much it means to me. So yeah, having people who understand the societal and the stigma related aspects, um, who understand that I feel misunderstood or that I feel silenced or that I feel discrimination and things like that, they are the people who open up space for me, pressure space for me to feel able enough to speak out, to feel able to talk about my life, live openly, make me feel belonging, make me feel valued. And that improves my self-worth, that makes me feel safer emotionally, and it gives me a sense of acceptance. So probably you can see that having those things like feeling safe enough to speak or improved self-worth, you can see how that might, for some people, reduce their panic attacks or reduce their suicidal thoughts, for example. For me, anyway. Obviously, I'm just one person, but that's how it is for me. So yeah, if the societal stigma related impacts as aspects improve, then my experiences improve as well. So, as I just mentioned, if I feel that I can't speak openly, I feel that I have to hide, I feel that nobody knows the real me, I tangibly and notably get more frequent panic attacks, more severe panic attacks, and I definitely get more suicidal thoughts and self-harm thoughts. On the flip side, if I can speak openly, I feel acceptance, I feel that I belong, the experiences improve. I can breathe. I feel like I can breathe. So on that note, I am very sensitive to language. I think quite a lot of people diagnosed with BPD are quite sensitive to words and how communication comes across. But this is something over the years that I've noticed, that I am very sensitive to language. And on the one hand, that's probably a strength because I probably wouldn't be writing all the time. Um, I love words, but I'm sensitive to them. So when people who cared about me, people who definitely loved me, deeply loved me, when they said certain things to me, it had an impact. So when people said, I'm trying so hard to help you, I don't know what more to do, I can't do any more than I'm already doing, nothing's good enough for you, nothing's working, I feel so useless, I feel so, that should say helpless, I feel so helpless, I give up. Um, I think there was frustration, there was upset, there were people who loved me who just felt they didn't know what to do. And I reckon that's quite common in families and friends and partners and people who love people with BPD. It's probably quite common, and it's not for want of trying. It's coming from a place of love and care. But I heard, you're too difficult to love, you upset everyone, you're broken, there's no hope, you're worthless. And that's not what people were saying, but that's how I interpreted that. And you can imagine that that made my experiences of BPD a lot harder and a lot more distressing. So, what could a person who cares and loves a person with BPD do or say, in my opinion? Well, to deal with somebody who's feeling misunderstood, as many people with BPD, I believe, are, you can say, tell me what it's like for you, and center lived experience as expertise. I think so often people with this diagnosis are discredited subtly, that they don't really know or it's not really real. I think centering that lived experience as knowledge, as genuine knowledge, is really powerful. If someone's feeling rejected, I think, for me anyway, consistency, clear yet gentle communication at boundaries. I think it's two things. I think it's clarity, but being gentle about it. So, for example, I really want to discuss this with you, but I need to rest first so my head is clearer. If somebody said, I can't talk about this now, um, I would think, oh no, I'm terrible, I'm chaotic, they hate me. But if a boundary is communicated gently, I find it so helpful and I accept it, accept it a lot more easily. Feeling silenced, that's something I go through a lot, but offering non-judgmental opportunities to listen, only if you want to, though, and only if you feel able to. For example, is this something you want to talk about? And I can't stress this enough. Please don't invite someone to talk if you don't want to hear the answer. Because I've had this lots of times where people have said to me, "Yeah, you can talk with me," and then I have, and then they've told me they didn't want me to talk. So I think honesty here is really essential as well, and having the right time, the right timings, and communicating if it's the right time or the wrong time is very powerful for me. People who feel scared of speaking openly, like myself, um, which I know might sound a bit weird because I'm giving a talk to lots of people, but there are many settings in my life when I am scared to speak openly. I use a pen name. I don't talk face to face about my life with everybody. I pick and choose my settings and my context very carefully. Um, I think providing gentle clarity on the topics that you can and can't discuss, your boundaries around communication and confidentiality are really helpful. So, for example, if a friend says to me, I I find it really tricky to talk about blah 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 thing, but I can talk about blah 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 thing, and it's not personal to you, it's just because of blah blah blah. I think just having the clarity around that is really helpful because so many times I've spoken about something and I've been met with like a shaming response and it just makes me feel dreadful. I can't tell you how bad it makes me feel. It feels dreadful. Um, Hiding needs and masking, I think, yeah, being non-judgmental about how I express my emotions and acknowledge that I do mask and hide around a lot of people. People who say to me, you can be yourself with me. I have friends who are like that. It's really liberating. Um, yeah, and it helps me breathe, basically. Um, the prejudice and the rampant discrimination, the struggle to access relevant, effective, compassionate care. I think people who tell me you didn't deserve to be treated coldly, you didn't deserve to be called an attention seeker, you do deserve respect, you deserve care, you deserve to be listened to. I had a friend who said, you deserve to enjoy your birthday. Um, sounds like a small thing, but it meant so much to me that they said that. So affirming the value and affirming the worthiness of care for me, it can change my day, my week. I internalize that. I remember that. I return to that. I write everything down on my phone. If people say a kind comment to me, I write it down in a list. If people text me, I copy and paste it into my notes. I keep it because the words mean so much to me, basically. Yeah, so one of my favorite quotations is this one. The word love is most often defined as a noun, yet we would all love better if we used it as a verb. And it's by the wonderful writer Bell Hooks from the book All About Love, New Visions. So love as a verb, not as a noun. So something that you do as a process. And I think if love is something that you can do, you can change it. You can do it differently. And for me, when I think about family and friends and partners and people who care, it's not about doing or loving more. Because I've had people say, I can't do any more. What am I doing? Like I can't give you any more. It's not about more. For me, it's actually about doing or loving differently, slightly differently, or coming at it from a slightly different angle. It's not that people have never loved me enough. That might be the case for some people, But for me, it's not that I've not been loved enough. It's just I needed something different. But first, I believe that doing differently or loving differently means working towards acknowledging, respecting, and honoring the difference in the person you care about who has a BPD diagnosis. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a minute. This is not the same thing as just legitimizing unsafe actions. So I'm not saying if someone's hurting themselves, that you can say, oh, that's fine, like carry on doing it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying acknowledging, respecting, and honoring the difference in the who they are, the deep down emotional needs, things like that. Hopefully that will become clear in a minute. So, yeah, the differences in the emotional needs, the communication needs, expression, what they value, prioritize, what they hold as important, and more. Um, because I believe that people with BPD, including myself, tend to feel in complex ways. So, ambiguity, so maybe conflicting emotions or nuanced emotions or mixed emotions, or maybe really loving something, but also like fearing it at the same time. So ambivalence, like two things, two opposing things at once. And I believe that people with BPD can often feel both and at the same time. And I think that's why, for me anyway, dialectical behavior therapy has been so effective because dialectical behavior therapy is about having two things that are true at the same time, acceptance and change, or resting and working, or um, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think it's so powerful for people with BPD, because I think it speaks to our complex emotions. So, yeah, as I've just said, complexity, it can be conflicting emotions, layers of emotions, an identity that can be both or made up of several aspects, shifting emotions, shifting identities, and I think trauma. I'm not a psychologist, but I think trauma might relate to this as well. Um, so, what I ask of people who I'm close to is acknowledge, respect, and honor my complexity. Take my emotions seriously. Believe me, validate me. Don't just say, how can your emotions have changed so quickly? Or like, how could you be laughing in the morning and now you feel suicidal in the evening? I do, I can. I can. That's all I can say. Believe me. Um, Acknowledge the reality of the both and allowing that fluidity without saying that's not possible, that's not true, because for them, maybe that's not possible, but for me, that's possible. And I think appreciate the experiences that I have, even if you don't have them, even if a friend of mine doesn't relate in any way, I still ask that they would let me have like allow that like that's me, accept me. Maybe there's something that people can learn as well. I try to learn from others, maybe people can learn from me. So I kind of ask to be treated as an equal in my relationships, like an equally valid way of feeling emotions. Again, I feel that people with BPD tend to feel things at high capacity. I've noticed this through all the conversations I've had with people with BPD. Um, we have big hearts generally, intense emotions, but loving deeply, enthusiastic, caring deeply, strong emotional needs, desire for deep relationships, curiosity, yearning, and like what I just call expansiveness. I do believe that. I saw a quote and I don't know where the quote was from, but it was somebody talking about their friend with BPD, and they said that sometimes they have to support their friend, sometimes they have to help their friend, but in return for that, they get one of the biggest hearts that they've ever met. And I feel like that's the case for me. Sometimes I need things, but I will give a lot. I will give a lot back. Yeah. So acknowledge, respect, honor my capacity. If possible, allow me to express myself, be excited, overflow my emotions, bubble up, give me chance to follow my curiosity, Don't pathologize my desire for closeness. Obviously, boundaries, clarity, they mean everything to me. Don't put a limit on what I can do or achieve. I've had people say to me, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Who's to say that I can't? With the right supports in place, I, I can. I can. I think so often people with BPD are kind of limited or told that they can't do something. Um, but with the right supports in place, it may very well be possible. Yeah, maybe there's something to be learned from people with BPD. I value and I desire meaningful, close connections. So yeah, again, allow me to express how I feel, my love, my excitement, my curiosity. Communicate boundaries clearly with gentleness. Don't shame me for being who I am. Um, I ask people to reciprocate in the way that's comfortable for them, in the amount that's comfortable for them. My friends, people I care about, they don't have to be the same as me. I think that's something I've learned over the years. People can love me in a different way than I love them. And I've started to accept that now. I find that hard sometimes, but everybody shows their emotions in a different way. And honesty and clarity, they kind of keep everything for me ticking, and relationships are easier with honesty and clarity. So, one of the questions that I ask in my books and in my writing is, what if there's a different or more generous or even more accurate way to see this person and everything they have been and continue to go through? So, I might be running out of time now, um, but I use a lot of what if questions. So, what if my fear of abandonment was actually my deep desire for close, emotionally enriching relationships? What if my expressive nature was actually evidence of my courage to be vulnerable, to love openly and fully? What if my unstable emotions were proof of easily accessed, like amplitudes of joy and excitement and love and awe? Um, and yeah, what if my ability to sense and be acutely responsive to social and emotional textures is a strength with immense value for communities? Because I do believe that people with this diagnosis can be incredibly good at, caring for others, teaching others, supporting others. Anger issues, like what if anger issues were actually a refusal to be silent in the face of injustice? It's hard sometimes to communicate in a world that doesn't always believe you when you speak your truth. Identity disturbance, maybe it's honesty to yourself, it's creativity, you're refusing to stagnate. Chronic feelings of emptiness, maybe it's capacity for depth, you're yearning for rich meanings. And what if it's not about being too much or emotional excess? What if it's actually having a huge heart in a world that says, don't cry? You have a deep need for closeness in a world that says, let go. A thirst for meaning in a world that says, care less. And you have a desire to speak up in a world that says, be quiet. And none of this is to negate the pain and suffering, because I've lived that and I do live that. I just try to think sometimes of new ways of thinking about myself. So different, not disordered, different, not broken, different, not wrong. And again, that's not to say that some things are not needing to be changed. Things that are causing pain and that are not safe obviously need to be changed as gently as possible. But I've been really inspired by the conversations about neurodivergence, um, writers who say difference, like think about yourself as different, not as broken. And yeah, language has a real world impact, as I said before. It changes the way people think about themselves, the way people respond. So, just a few more swaps. You're overreacting. Could be, I can see it's having a big impact on your emotions. Why are you so sensitive to everything? I know you feel things deeply, place a high value on this. This means a lot to you. You experience your emotions intensely. I don't know how to help you with this. I want to figure out a way to be supportive. Can we find a time that works for both of us to discuss this? So they are essentially saying the same thing. but they are saying that the kind of more gentle way of saying it, it's just gonna make life a lot easier. It makes life a lot easier for me when people speak gently to me. Stop, no. I find that really like, triggering thing to hear. Sometimes when I'm having a panic attack, if people say stop or no, let's try something different. I'm here to help. Shall we try the next small step together? I don't know what to say. But people have told me that a lot over the years. They just speechless, they don't know what to say. I care about you and I want to respond thoughtfully. I'm here with you, even if I don't have the perfect words. I need a break. I care about you. I need an hour to blah, 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 or a day or, half an hour, whatever the time is. Then I will come back and we can chat. So again, they're saying similar things. It's just how the meaning is being phrased. Connection, care, clarity. These are the three principles that I think kind of hang everything together. Um, I probably won't read all this through, I'll just give a minute to have a look. But phrases that can be used to build connection, phrases that can be used to build care, and phrases for clarity. I think having these as a little menu are really helpful. And yeah, these are genuine phrases that my friends have said to me that I've literally used from my phone, but I internalize these and they help me to feel better about myself and they have a direct impact on how I feel about myself and how easily I can live and breathe. And again, with those phrases, I think the power of pausing is really useful. Something I've said to my husband, if he's saying one of these things to me, can he just pause so I can process it? Because if I'm panicking, I need a bit of time to think. Body language counts for so much. Just open, gentle body language. Facial expressions, I'm very sensitive to them. Neutral face or like slightly gentle face. It's just I read into facial expressions a lot. Position as well, like don't corner me into the corner of the room because I'm going to feel trapped. So thinking about being next to me rather than face on close to me. That's just me. And people with BPD diagnosis, I believe they often know what they need. I think that they might just need to feel safe enough to say it. That's the case for me. I often know. I just don't always feel able to say it because I'm worried about the reaction. I talk a lot about meta communication. I've written a post about it with lots of examples on my blog. But meta communication, if you've not heard of it before, it's basically talking about talking. And I think meta communication and talking about talking is really useful. It's been really useful for me. So phrases like, can we talk about how to communicate more effectively? Would now be a good time to share some feedback with you? Because I don't take feedback easily when it's sprung upon me. I have to mentally prepare for it. Do you have the headspace to talk about something I'm struggling with? Do you feel okay to listen or do you need a moment first? My husband says that to me because I've told him I can't always listen if I'm panicking. I need to calm down first and then I can listen. Otherwise, he might say, "You're not listening to me." And I say, "Yeah, because I'm not in the frame of mind to listen. I have to calm down first." I'm not sure I fully understand yet. Could you please explain? I think clarity. A lot of the time I do need things rephrasing to me so I can process it and think, oh, were they actually offending me or were they actually trying to hurt me or were they just trying to say something and it just came across in a certain way? Um, I'm trying to find the right words, but I may make some mistakes. I appreciate if you feel able to clarify for me. Um, yeah, people often don't know what to say to people who feel so distressed, and that's because society doesn't always teach people to say they've not practiced. And I know that, but I think people who acknowledge that they're trying and they might make mistakes, that makes me feel at ease instantly. It makes me feel safe, I guess. Um, Yeah, so my moods are often contingent and connected to how people respond to me and how connected I feel to people. This is from my phrase, this is a paragraph from my new book. If people reciprocate emotionally to me, are responsive to me, show me warmth, then this like thread between us feels strong and taut. I feel positive, I feel safe. But on the flip side, if people are unresponsive or they seem distant or cold, the thread feels loose and I feel anxious. My mood can drop and my self-esteem can shrink. And obviously, that's something I'm trying to work on, and it has improved over the years. But what I would say is small moments of connection and holding in mind mean a lot. And again, I'm looking at my phone because I just think my phone's my worst enemy and my best friend all at once. But if I get a small text, here's a photo of my day, saw this and thought of you, an emoji, I feel that connection, and it helps me hold that relationship in my mind. I'm thinking of you, even if we're not together. Notes and cards, or a letter to read over, an object to look at or hold. So it's just to kind of keep that connection feeling concrete, even when someone's not there. I think I'm nearly done now. Yeah, so if you want to kind of read more about how I think about my diagnosis or about identity and relationships, you might enjoy my book. And again, yeah, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, I've really appreciated having this moment to talk with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rosie. I might get you to stop sharing screen so we can see more of you.
Yeah, is that
Um,
better?
yeah, that's better. So, I guess the first question is one I want to ask as well. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about your sort of journey with BPD, like when you were diagnosed? And I mean, you've obviously overcome a lot. I mean, you've got a master's degree, you're married, you're working, and many of the people that are reaching out to us for help are, their person, may not be getting to school or may not be
Mhm.
able to work, or they're trying to get into work now, So, can you share with us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, I was first diagnosed with BPD when I was at university. So I really wanted to go to university and I managed to get there. But as soon as I got there, I had a had a mental breakdown. I'm laughing. It's obviously not
Mm,
funny. It's obviously traumatic. It was very bleak and utterly terrifying because you're young and you don't know what to do. Your family don't know what to do. It's scary. It's hard to get help. I did manage to get some therapy and then I managed to go back to university, but it wasn't plain sailing. I had more struggles. Um, yeah, so I was diagnosed with BPD towards the end of university, but it was kind of an unofficial diagnosis. The psychiatrist said she didn't want to write it in my notes because she didn't want me to be stigmatized. So that made me hide. That made me scared to talk to doctors, made me scared to talk about it to anybody really. So it took me a good few years after that and more crises to, and I'd moved house by then. So I was in the mental health services again, and they had a DBT, dialectical behavior therapy team, and they assessed me and they said, yeah, you do meet this diagnosis, and they offered me DBT, and I was incredibly grateful for that because not many areas had it, and it
mm,
was so helpful because it was perfect for me because it acknowledged my struggles and helped me know what to do with my emotions. So yeah, in the first book that I wrote, I've written a lot about DBT and how it helped me because it's been the only therapy that's really gotten to the core of what I needed. Because before I would talk about my struggles and I'd become so distressed that I couldn't then progress in the therapy because I was too upset. So DBT helped me to regulate myself so that I could actually talk about my struggles.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the main thing in terms of a formal therapy that helped me. What I would say is all the things that I talked about in my talk, like the social side and the friends and the sense of belonging and having people who understood me, that that was essential too, kind of like two sides. Yeah.
So that's, yeah, I'm really sorry you had that first experience with a psychiatrist who gave you a diagnosis and a package of shame in one fell swoop,
Yeah.
um, which is not very helpful.
Yeah.
That must have been a awful experience. Um, but as you came to terms with your diagnosis, and you know, and obviously being helped by DBT would have helped you come to terms because it is all about acceptance and change.
Mm.
How did you find the process of sort of educating people around you about BPD and also how to, you know, change the way that they communicated with you and change the way that they supported you?
I think that's actually been something that I've only learned quite recently, I would say, in all honesty. I think when I was younger, I just found that really difficult. It's something I've only learned in the last few years, in all honesty, and it's kind of a new way of thinking for me. Yeah, if I'm honest. I
Mm.
don't find it easy
But,
to go to people and say, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" It's something that it's new, it's quite new. Yeah. Sorry,
well,
it's maybe not
no,
very
no, no,
helpful. It's
no,
quite
look,
new.
you know, you're having this conversation with us, which, you know, will be seen and shared and, you know, that reduces the stigma and also gets people going along. But what was the process? And again, you know, obviously, as comfortable as you are to answer these questions, there's no pressure. But with your own family, when you talked to them about the diagnosis, you know, how did you go in that process?
I don't know really. I think it's been like a subtle thing over the years, probably, rather than a kind of like big one-off event or big one-off
Mm,
conversation. Um, I suppose it's been a bit different for me because I was writing and blogging and doing the books and things like that. So I had this kind of like, I guess, public forum that I was talking about it. And I think that enabled me to speak to other people who felt similarly to me. But I don't speak to everybody about my struggles. I
mm,
pick and choose quite carefully because about I get so upset when the response is not what I need. Sometimes I
mm,
ask certain people to communicate that to other people if I don't feel able to communicate it directly. I'm just speaking honestly here. I'm not going to pretend that's
yeah,
easy. Um, I do feel that written communication is really helpful for me. I think there's a bit of maybe like snobbery about using phones, but people think that it's less personable or less effective. But I do find typing and writing easier because I'm able to think before I speak and I'm able to be in my own space so I can regulate my own emotions. So if I do need to communicate something important at the moment, I often do it through my phone because I
yeah,
can do it in a controlled way and I don't have to cry in front of somebody or have a panic attack in front of somebody, which makes me feel out of control. I can do it in a space that's comfortable for me. And sometimes, like thinking of friends, I but I've been able to talk with them through my phone, and then later I can do it face to face. So I don't think phones are
yeah.
it's a bad thing. I personally, it's quite liberating for me.
Yeah. I just want to validate, you know, that's certainly my experience of working with adolescents and their parents and with the family connections groups is that often that rebuilding of communication between parents and adolescents with BPD will be over the phone using the Dear Man
Mm,
structure, you know,
mm,
and so that for those that haven't done DBT or Family Connections, DMAN is a communication acronym that sort of sets out how you can communicate in a um, in a less emotional, well, it brings in emotion, which is very important, but it in a factual, non-triggering kind of way, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
do you find you still use DMAN a
I
lot
do.
even after?
I do.
Yeah,
I return to nearly all of the skills that I learned many years ago now. And I think the more I've used them, the more they just become like a second nature to me. So sometimes I don't realize I'm using them, but I'm using them every day because I've practiced them
yeah,
now. Not saying I'm perfect, I'm definitely not, but I've internalized them a lot now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely a thing for a lot of people. So it just obviously we've got people joining the recording now because of our miscommunication around the timing of this. We're very sorry to people that are coming in now. But this is recorded and it will go up on our website and it will go up on our YouTube channel. And you can have a look back over it. And what we're up to at the moment is asking Rosie some of the questions that were submitted. If you'd like to submit a question in the chat, please go ahead. Um, so um, we've got a lot of questions, obviously, around how to, and I think, you've already answered them a lot with your sort of examples of, more gentle framing of, um, of expressing boundaries or asking for clarity or, you know, calling for time out. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of questions around, how to talk to someone about their BPD diagnosis or perhaps even potential BPD diagnosis. I mean, how did you find it when other people raised BPD with you? Or how do you, is that?
I only got it raised with me by professionals. And so I didn't have
Mhm.
people in my life raising it to me, actually. I think maybe because they didn't know about it. Because I don't know, it's not that commonly known about, I wouldn't say, in the
Mm.
UK. When a professional mentioned it to me, I was like, no, it can't be that. I was like, definitely not, because I read about it and I encountered all the stereotypes and I thought, oh well, I may hate myself sometimes, but I don't think I'm a monster because I Googled it and it's like there's all these monstrous like horrible stereotypes on the internet and I thought, oh, I don't think that's me, even though I didn't like myself that much. I just still didn't relate to it. Um, but when I read about DBT, because I read that it would help or it might help, I thought, wow, that is perfect because it ticked all the boxes of the things that I was struggling with. So it was through reading about DBT that I realized, oh, maybe I do meet the BPD diagnosis then. And then once I'd been given it properly, I I was like, yeah, I did accept it, but I was angry about the stigma and I was angry about the stereotypes. And I felt so
Mhm.
isolated. I felt so alone and so like I felt disgust. That was my shame and disgust were my two main emotions actually, because I felt like I couldn't speak about it and that was horrible. So that's kind of one of
Mm.
the reasons why I do what I do because I don't believe that anyone should have to be ashamed of themselves. That's why I'm so keen on talking about identity and how there are positives to people with BPD because pretty much everyone that I've met with this diagnosis is so kind, so caring, trying their absolute best to be a good person and act with integrity. I that's why I see in people with this diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Sorry, we are getting people jumping in now, and uh, yes, the recording will be distributed. And do you mind distributing the PDF um of your presentation,
Yeah, that's
Rosie?
fine. I can share that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Rosie, we had a mix up with the time, and Rosie had slides which had some really great examples of, statements that are not very helpful and ways that you can ask the same thing but in a much more helpful manner for her.
Yeah.
It's always everyone's got a different preferences, obviously. Um, uh, what else? Um, we've got I mean, obviously, as you said in your presentation, everybody's different, but someone was asking about, what's the best way to tell your person some news that may not be, may not land well, may not be good news.
Mhm.
What kind of scaffolding did you appreciate?
For me, I think it's having this like buffer. So before you just say it, asking somebody, asking me, oh, I would love to talk to you about something, or I need to talk to you about something. When would be a good time so we can both focus? Um, the only problem with that is if someone says they've got something to say to me, I immediately think, oh, it's going to be the most terrible piece of news ever. Um, but I'm
Mm,
trying to be open to all possibilities. I'm trying to be more open to that. I think it's about, yeah, asking somebody, you know, are you able to talk about this? Or if you did want to talk to somebody about having BPD, you think they've got BPD or they meet the criteria for the BPD diagnosis, um, or you know they've been diagnosed with BPD and you want to talk to them about it, I would first ask their consent for that. So I would say, do you like, or do you want to talk about this? You don't have to. Like, are you able to talk about this? Do you want to talk about it with me? Because
mm,
there's nothing worse than feeling like you have to talk to somebody because you don't have to tell somebody something personal about you if you don't want to. It should be a choice. So I think that's why asking for permission first, and maybe a person might say no, but when they realize that you accept their no, maybe later they'll come back to you because they'll see you as trustworthy, maybe. That's
yeah,
what I think.
I was really struck. Yeah, I was really struck by also you saying, that you've negotiated with people close to you to give you pause, like to be able to,
Yeah,
to sort of allow you to have that time to regulate or to, yeah, to do a little bit of self-regulation and then to hear it again when you can actually take it in.
yeah,
And that, because it's almost like a processing disorder, isn't it? In a sense,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's,
It is because
yeah.
when your emotions are so high, it's really hard to think or listen. And I can be come across as two different people in that sense of like panicking me, where it doesn't seem like I'm thinking about the other person or even that I care about what they think because I'm panicking so much. It's because I'm
Mm,
panicking so much. Of course, I look like I don't care because I'm having a panic attack. I think I'm going to die when I'm having a panic attack. So that's why I'm not thinking about the other person. But as soon as I calm down, I will be very empathetic, very generous to the other person, like very thoughtful towards the other person. I just have to calm down first, and that's all it is really. It's not personal, it's just a panic. It's just a panic. I think though the meta communication thing, so the talking about talking, I think it's really powerful. So some of my friends, I've had conversations with them about myself and how what I need and how I communicate, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me. So, for example, saying to them, if there's a problem between us, can they raise it so that I'm not always guessing if there's a problem? Um, and friends have said to me, yeah, if there's a problem, I'll let you know. And until then, you don't need to worry about it because I'll tell you if there is a problem. And that's been really massive for me. Um, so yeah, I
mm,
think talking about talking is really helpful.
yeah, yeah. And did you find that I just noticed that there's a comment about friendships. Did you find your friendships through your blogging, like the fact that you created yourself a community online, or was it more through university, or how did you
Um,
find your people?
I've found friends through all different places, to be honest. But one of my really good friends, I did actually find her through. blogging and social media. She's the only like prop sort of close real life friend that I found through social media. And we just immediately had a meeting of the minds because with her, I don't need to explain or prove myself. She experiences almost identically the same thing as me. So we
Mm,
have this ability to help each other. And also, we don't get phased by each other's emotions. So if she needs to express her emotions, I'm not phased by that because that's how I am. So I think we have this mutual understanding. Um, yeah, I do feel very lucky that I've got really good friends, but I would say it's a small number that I feel I can be speak honestly and communicate openly with. It's not like I do this sort of close communication with everybody because I have to have trust. And I do, I know this sounds a bit funny, but I do watch people very carefully before I know if I can trust them. So I
mm,
look for people who speak respectfully about things they don't understand, people they don't understand, difficult topics. If they seem open and non-judgmental about all types of different types of experiences, then that's when I think, oh, well, maybe they'd be respectful towards me because people are invariably shocked when they find out about my life. People's first reaction is, whoa, I never knew. They say things like, but you seem so nice, but you seem so kind, but you seem, and then I'm like, oh, it's such a backhanded compliment. Like I have this regularly in professional settings, like in my work.
mm,
And on the one hand, I'm really grateful that that I can work and that I have a job. Um, I get a lot from it. I'm lucky that I can do that, but also I feel like yeah, people are shocked, and it's just not a nice feeling sometimes. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I'm sorry you have that experience. It's um yeah. You have to remind yourself that when people say things like that, they're saying a lot about what they don't know.
Yeah,
They're revealing more about themselves than they are about you.
they are, and
Um,
I don't begrudge people for that either. I've had really people I really, really like doing that to me, and I'm honest with them, and I say, yeah, people do seem to be shocked because the stereotypes are not true, or people often think that people with mental health problems don't exist in the same spaces that they exist, and of course, people with mental health problems exist everywhere in every walk of life. There's not a specific look, there's not a specific sound. People still forget
yeah.
that.
And the most dangerous mental illness is the one that's buried because, they're the ones that will take drastic measures.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. Mm.
Mm. Um, okay. Did you, it was part of your BPD experience about feeling very impulsive? Is that something that you've had to deal with? Or are
Yeah,
you,
yeah. When my
and what did
emotions,
you find, what do you find useful to manage that?
yeah, when my emotions are high and when my like distress level is high, I can be my distress shows itself through like impulsivity, I guess, because of it's desperation, it's panic, it's sheer panic and desperation, and it's my fight and flight mode kicking in, and it's panic and it's fear and it's terror and it's desperation and it's I won't be still. I'll want to do
Mm,
something dramatic and big and like loud and like a statement because I don't know what to do, and I'm in terror.
mm,
And luckily, like in most of the times of my life, since in recent times, most of the time I haven't been in those situations. But when I'm in a high state of stress, it can come quickly like that. It can happen really fast. And what I find helpful For me, I just try not to get my stress levels into that place in the first place. I try to keep it down because once I'm there, it's very hard to stop. Um, Again, it's like DBT skills. There is the stop skill in DBT, which is really good. Um, but again, it's really, really hard to do if I'm incredibly stressed. And then it's like, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. And then boom, like somebody hasn't replied to my text. And that's the straw that's broken the camel's back. It's usually somebody who hasn't replied to a text. And it sounds so small. It sounds so small, but that's probably what it is for me. And it's not really about that. It's that I feel disconnected and I feel forgotten and I can't cope with
Mm.
that. But it will be
I love your
lots of
coping
things.
mechanism of writing all your friends' positive statements into notes. I assume when you're feeling dysregulated, do you go to that and remind yourself of
I
that
do.
continuity of care that exists? Yeah,
Yeah, if I have
that's a
a
beautiful technique, I think.
if I have something that feels like a conflict or a disconnection, even though it's not, I will go back and read that and remind myself. Yeah. But I find things like having a shower. It's such a basic thing, but often my husband will say like, "Why don't you go have a shower?" Because often I go in the shower and I feel better when I get out. And it's not like a magic cure, but it can just bring my emotions down ever so slightly until they can drop a bit more.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And so, you're married, and obviously, when you're not able to access the stop skill, for example, uh, is your husband helpful in that way? Is he, are there things that he can say that can fire it up even worse, or things that he can say that can bring you down?
Definitely. The language thing, the words thing, as I tried to show in my presentation, the phrasing is everything for me. I'm so precise and so sensitive to language. And that's tricky. That's tricky. That's tricky for him. That's tricky for everybody to feel that. But the gentler, is that a word? The more gentle somebody can communicate with me and with clarity. I'm not asking people to lie to me. I'm not asking people to be dishonest or hold things back from me. But the gentle clarity, it's what keeps it together, like keeps relationships together and keeps relationships going. And my husband is incredibly honest, and I trust that he's incredibly honest. And if I'd married somebody who I felt just bit their tongue and didn't tell me the truth, it would have probably just lasted about 5 minutes because I need somebody who is courageous enough to give me honesty and tell me the truth. Tell me what I'm doing that's annoying or
Yeah.
tell me that's, something that I need to change. I need to know that because I need to learn, but I need it telling to me in a gentle way. Otherwise,
Mm.
kaboom. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Um, for you, I mean, obviously it sounds like you have, you said that you really wanted to get to university. You were very motivated to get yourself there. And you're working and you're blogging and you're keeping yourself very busy. But did you find it hard to sort of move into work, or could you have any advice for people with BPD that are perhaps not working, or feel that they're not able to, or
Um, for me, I think I can only speak for myself really, but I think the environment is everything and the people within that environment. I think if somebody finds a workplace that doesn't, they they're not doing well there, they're upset there, they're stressed out there. I wouldn't take that as an indictment of yourself and your abilities. I would say you're needing a different workplace, you're needing a different environment or a different structure and different people. Um, and I guess that can be really hard to find. Um, but as I say with relationships, keep looking. As I say with health professionals, you've knocked on some doors, people haven't answered you, people have been mean to you or dismissed you and rejected you or not given you what you deserved. Don't give up. Like, I know that's annoying to hear sometimes because you people with BPD have to fight, fight, fight for basic things sometimes, but I don't give up. I do not give up. I I'm very, very stubborn. And I must have that stubbornness and determination deep in me because if I didn't, I would have given up. Because like things have been hard. People have rejected me. Yeah, so I'd say it's the same. I'd say the same about work as I say about friends, relationships, health professionals. Keep trying. Like if one thing's not right, try to find the strength to keep going and try some knock on another door. I wish that we didn't have to always be doing that because I say, oh, people with BPD are so resilient. Definitely, to get out of bed and face the world, it's resilience every day sometimes. And I wish
Mm,
we didn't have to be resilient because we're resilient because people are forcing us to have to be that way sometimes. Um, So yeah, resilience, even though I wish you didn't have to be resilient and keep knocking on the doors, but all I can say is keep going.
mm.
Yeah.
And as you were saying with the, like the DBT skills, you said that you've internalized those now because you just keep using them and keep practicing them.
Yeah.
Have you found that you're, like we know that even without treatment, the intensity of somebody's BPD will reduce with age,
Hmm.
and experience. And have you found that to be the case for you as well? I mean, obviously you have
Yeah.
had treatment, but
Yeah, I think it has. I think it definitely has because I've made a lot of improvements and life has got easier. That's not to say in times of stress or times of change that it doesn't flare up again because I have had that recently. Like I've moved house and it's been a nightmare because of the
mm,
stress of moving house. So it's not a linear thing, but overall, looking at it in a holistic way, definitely. I think people with BPD, we know about hopelessness. We know about feeling bleak, 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 no hope. What's the point of living? May as well just die because there's no hope. Like, I guess that every person with BPD knows that, and it's utterly unbearably painful at times. It feels unbearable, but it can't, like, it's a cliche that it can change. I always believe it won't. When I'm in that state, I always
mm,
think, no, it won't. It's not going to. That's why I have to count on other people to hold on to the hope for me. Because
mhm,
when I'm hopeless, I feel helpless. I feel like nothing's ever going to get better. I
mm,
just need maybe 1% of me to sort of think, well, so and so said it will, so maybe it will. But I don't believe it. I'm just like, maybe it will, hopefully. But
yeah,
it's hard.
faking it till you make it kind of thing too, I guess.
There's a lot of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
which is hard work.
Yeah,
Takes a lot of effort.
yeah.
Um, I think we have yeah, I think we've probably covered, most of the questions that let me just double check again. Sorry to sort
Oh,
of hold you
okay.
there. Yeah, no, we have. And where can people find your writing? So you've got a website, did you say? Or
Yes, so my website is called Talking About BPD. So if you Google Talking About BPD, maybe Rosie, it will come up. It's www.talkingaboutbpd.co.uk, and that's the same name as my book. So everything's talking about BPD. Um, yeah, and I go into a lot about the social and relationships aspects of life with this diagnosis. This book has a lot about DBT and how DBT helped me. The second one, less so. It's a workbook and it's more about
Mhm.
identity, strengths, positives, relationships, because that's the direction that I'm moving in. I still find DBT
Yeah.
helpful, but I look at more of the identity and relationships stuff now.
Yeah. So that would be a really nice way to finish, just to wrap up, like just to reiterate again, what you see as being the strengths of BPD from your perspective.
Yeah, and that's not to say it's not painful. I know I don't want to invalidate anybody, and I can see from the chats that are popping up, because I can't read them all, I can see from the chats popping up, some people are having really, really difficult times. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it's painful at times.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is, but what do you see as being the strengths that that deep sensitivity, that deep caring. Is that where you would?
I think um I am me, and if I weren't like without like who I am sensitive to emotions. That's who I am. And without that, I wouldn't have everything that I have today in my life. I wouldn't have such like such close relationships. I don't believe I'd have such a great relationship that I have with my daughter. For example, like I believe that I attune to her so carefully and so closely. Um, because I am sensitive to emotions. I teach her about emotions. Um,
Mm,
I teach her that it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry. Um, yeah, I'm a teacher, so I put a lot of thought into how to create an environment in the school that supports all children and helps them to feel safe to learn. So I believe that, my experiences have been being told I can't do something or being told that I'm bad for feeling a certain way, I try to translate that into how I want the world to be in my own small way. And I'm
mm,
really proud of the like relationships that I've built and the friendships that I've built because I've intentionally built those in a way that I feel friendships and relationships should be. And I think if I hadn't been through what I've been through, I wouldn't be who I am. And it is painful sometimes, but also it's amazing other times. Like as
yeah.
I tried to say in my presentation, like there's so much riches, there's the riches that come from being me. And I think
Mm,
sometimes people with BPD feel they believe in the stereotypes. They believe they're bad, they're manipulative, they're attention seeking, they're dramatic, they're a monster, and that there's no point, there's no purpose for them in life. But I believe the world is a better place with people with BPD because of these amazing strengths and the knowledge and the kind of understanding that they bring. And that's why I want, as grandiose as it sounds, that's why I want people with this diagnosis to be able to um, feel like empowered and feel that they bring something of value to this world. And that's why I look at neurodivergence as a kind of model for doing that. I'm not saying people with BPD have to say they're neurodivergent or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying.
mm,
But I'm saying there's something for me to be learned in being proud of who you are and feeling that you deserve to have a seat at the table, to speak your truth
mm,
and to be who you are. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And Stan's got a question here about sort of saying how important is it to you to have a positive environment around you and does the sort of the negativity bias of social media have an impact on you?
Positive environment, the right environment is essential. I'm very
Mm,
sensitive to it. Yeah, I'm very sensitive to it. Social media, I think I go on it less than I used to. Um, I've been quite lucky in that I've not had many people, barely any people who've been rude to me on social media, which
mm,
or mean to me. It's been very rare, but I try not to get drawn into it. Like if someone wants to have an argument with me, I kind of just like don't really get into it with them because life's too short. Um, but yeah, I think social media can be very damaging if you're in the wrong sort of surrounded by the wrong people who are mean, because people can be so mean online, really
yeah.
mean. Oof.
Mm. Look, that has, thank you so much. We're pretty much at time. I, just want to say thank you so much for sharing, your story. It's always brilliant to hear from someone who's had lived experience and that we are, um, that you're a living example of hope and that, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Um, and that sometimes you'll be in a tunnel again and there'll still be light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah,
That
oh,
it's not linear, is it? Um,
absolutely not. That's so true. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having the time, having the space to share some of my stories, some of my thinking. And yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and I wish everybody the best.
Thanks very much, Rosie. We'll